Hey there, Prairie Plant Girl here. I'm out in my garage to grab some bulbs so I can get them started and pre-sprouted. But while we're out here, let's have a look at these Ranunculus and Anemone that are behind me real quick. I had these out in my greenhouse because we're having some beautiful weather for this time of year. But the forecast right now is for it to get quite cold at night and even below freezing during the day for the next while. So quite cold, like -15, -20 at night, and then -5 or so for daytime highs. So I thought I'd bring them in, but that's the ranunculus there, those two trays, and they are looking fabulous. I think I have pretty much everything up now. There might be a couple of empty spots, and you pull them out if I can even get them apart. Try and show you the roots. Oh, they're just, I need to pot them up. Look at those roots. Just gorgeous. So try and get those tucked back in there. So those definitely need to get potted up. I'm just waiting to see what the forecast looks like after next week, and then hopefully I get them potted up and back out in the greenhouse just with some frost cloth at night, and hopefully they'll do well there. And then these are the anemone, and there's a few that are starting to get sprouts on them, but they definitely, try not to get dirt everywhere in here. Definitely have roots on them. Like, look at those roots. And then there's a few sprouts coming. Cover that back up. So, and when you dig around, lots of them are rooted in, and there's another one here in this tray that has little sprouts starting there. Yeah, it's rooted in pretty good too. I don't want to yank it out. But so hopefully in another week or two, the anemone will be ready to be potted up, and the ranunculus could be potted up anytime now. Like I said, I'm just kind of waiting for the weather to cooperate. It's a little full in here, so I don't really have a lot of room to have. Once these are potted up, they'll take up at least twice as much, probably 3 times as much space. But I'll just put them in like 3x3, 4x4 type size pots when I do that. But now let's go inside where it's a little warmer. I have these out here because they want to be just around like 5-10 degrees Celsius. So that's what I give them out here. And I just have one little tiny grow light up there, and there's some windows in the garage, and that's all they're getting for light right now. So hopefully they're not out here very long. Let's go where it's warmer and to get the dahlias and the cannas dealt with. Okay, so I told myself last fall I wasn't growing any more dahlias, except for a few that I have in cold storage that are just still in their pots, and they're not actually in that cold storage. So I'm not sure they're going to come through and grow this spring. But of course, I can't believe myself, because here I am with a beautiful package of dahlias. These are like a ball type dahlia, and brand new pack, just kind of a mixed variety. So let's see what's in here. So it just says assorted and size number 1 dahlias. Should be decent sized roots. They're packed in some, it looks like cedar chips. And it looks like they're whole clumps. I expected just to be single roots, but it looks like they're whole clumps. So let's see. Shake one out here. Wow, look at that. That's not what I was expecting. So nice big clump. There's another one. Oh, this just broke off. It looks like just the root. There's no neck or a growing eye point, so that one's no good. There's another one. They look like nice healthy clumps. So that's 3. Four. I can't even tell where the top of this. Oh, there's the neck. 4. Oh, that's 5 now. Okay. 6. So you can see how the structure of the tubers can be very different from one another. Like, these are very skinny and long. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with these compared to these that are very large. It's just the different varieties. So that's, you know, don't be concerned if you have some that are really skinny and some that are really fat. So there should be one more in here. Okay, so the last one there. So I could divide all of these, look through, trying to find growth points and divide them, but I'm not even going to worry about that. I was expecting to have 7 individual like tubers like this that had the neck and the growth point attached, and that's all I was expecting in this bag, and instead I have 7 full clumps. They're nice sized clumps, but they're not huge. They don't have to be divided. I'm trying to see if I could try and see to show you. It can be hard to tell. They haven't started to wake up yet for some growth points, so what you could look for to divide them. I always have trouble seeing them if they haven't started to kind of wake up yet. Let's see if I can see on another one better. I'm not seeing anything that's just jumping out to me. There's some on here, but I don't think they're going to show up on camera well. That one's going to be even harder to see, I'm sure. They're so small. Okay, see if I can show this on here. I'm not sure how well it'll show up for you. So right here, you can see on the tuber, like you can see these are the tuber pieces here, these large kind of finger fat pieces. And it's the same as on this here with the really skinny thing. So that's still the like the tuber part. And then you have kind of the narrower part, like right here is the neck on there. And if you go up from there, there's little bumps, and I just don't know how well they'll show up. But right in here, there's a little raised spot there. And that's a growth point. That's where the plant will grow from. So if you want to divide these, you would need to cut through. So you got a piece of this, the tuber part, and the neck, and then that little growth point. You need to get all 3, this shavings out of the way. You need to get all 3 of those to have a viable plant in the end. So, really hard. Like, it's easier once they've kind of woken up to see and know what you're doing with them. I'm trying to find you another example. So you have your tuber right here. This is your neck. It's skinnier, neck down. They're not always this long and narrow and pronounced, but that's your neck. And then up in here, there's some little bumps, and those are going to be your growth points. I can't even see where the growth point is here. I think right there on this one. So here you can see you have the long tuber, and there's just the smallest little bit of a neck right in there. And then see if we can see a growth point in here, right kind of under this old bit of skin. There's just this little bump in there, and that's your growth point. So you'd need to have all of that if you're going to divide it. So we're going to do a process today that'll make it easier to see those things in a few weeks. So today we're going to do something called pre-sprouting, and that will help to make those little growth points a little more obvious. So this is something you could do just to get a whole clump growing, which is what I'm going to do. I doubt I'll divide them in the end. I'll just pot them up afterwards. But you could do a little pre-sprouting, and then it would help you to know where to go in and divide them afterwards. So it's a very simple process. You just need to get rid of all the wood shavings. So I'm just going to put a little bit of, this is my seed starting mix just because I have it handy here, but you could just put damp peat moss or potting soil or whatever you have available to you into a tray, and then you can just take your clump. I'm going to actually come through. Where's those snips? Don't need all these extra bits, and they just can encourage rot and things. So I'm just going to take off some of these old dead root bits. You don't have to do that, but I just feel better about putting the plant in the ground there when I don't have all this extra dead material that's going to just be of no use and could just encourage rot. Just get rid of the extras there. Okay, so then just take it, and if you have just a single, if this had the root and the growth point and everything, you could just lean it up in your tray like that and then cover it over with soil. If you have the whole tuber like I do here, you want to find the neck from the old plant and have that pointing up so you don't get a bunch of moisture down in there. And I just like to kind of find a way to kind of spread them out a little bit. And different people do this different ways. So some people will put them all straight down. Some will lay them out like that. It really doesn't matter. It's just kind of your preference. So I'm going to get another one in there because there's room, I think, for this small one in there as well. This isn't going to be their final growing space, so you can kind of pack them in a little bit. So again, I've just removed some of that old dead growth off of there. And I'm going to look for where the old stem was. And I can see it was growing up this way, and there's actually, it looks like a second one here. So this tuber, you could actually probably come and easily divide it down the middle here. But I'm not worried about this clump being divided right now. So I'm just going to stand it in my tray. And then we don't need to bury them very deep. You don't even have to really bury them, but they'll probably, you saw what my ranunculus looked like. I could wind up leaving them in here for a little while. So I just want to give them a little bit of something to be around any roots that come out. And I don't know the varieties, but I just made some tags that say Dahlia on them. I have 2 clumps, so I'll put 2 tags in here. In a week or 2, there'll start to be some shoots coming out of here. So here on this clump, I have some nice big fat tubers. So this variety probably has some pretty fat tubers. There's one that's a little bit skinnier, but it's plump, it's firm. This one here is like just soft, squishy, dried up. So I'm gonna cut that one out. No point in saving it. It's not going to be any good. And I'm just, again, taking off these old roots. And I'm looking through. If there's anything rotten or unhealthy looking, I'm going to take that off at this point as well. But these clumps look pretty good. So just take this clump. Oh, I need some mix in here. So just a little bit on the bottom here, and then just take my clump and set it in. Now this one's pretty tight together. There's not going to be a lot of space to spread them out at the bottom. So they're just going to kind of stand in there like that. And we have another one here, so I'm going to clean it up as well. Just do a little grooming on it. And this tuber here is like kind of almost juicy, squishy. It's been damaged at the top, so I'm going to take that off because that's just going to become a rotten tuber in the moist soil. Everything else on here looks really good. This one you can see has been broken or cut, but it still has a substantial amount of tuber that's nice and healthy looking. It still has the neck, and I think there's a little growth point right up there. So this should probably still grow a decent plant off of it, just because there's so much. If there was lots of this broken away, it might not have the energy to grow, but this is a nice big substantial tuber, so it'd probably be fine. I'm going to set this one in here next to the other one, try and get it kind of pointing somewhat upright so that the shoots are coming up. Again, I'll throw a couple of tags in there and put some soil around. I want the soil to kind of get in between those tubers if I can. Just tapping it to try and get it worked down in between all those tubers, and that one had quite a few on it. My tags are in there. So that's 2 trays done, four sets of tubers. Just set those out of the way. And grab these. There's 3 more here. We'll see. I don't know if I'll be able to get all 3. I might have to put another tray out for this one. It's quite large, but we'll trim the 2 smaller ones up anyways. So if I didn't say it, this is just last year's roots that I'm trimming off of here. It's these extra little bits, and they're dried up, they're done, they're from last year, so they won't do anything for us this year. So I may as well just get rid of them. So you can also do this, you know, like I said, I'm not planning on dividing these, so I could just take these into some pots that they fit in just standing upright and just put soil in, put the dahlia in, and cover the whole thing over, making sure that there's soil underneath this part, because you can see how the tubers hang down. So you need to make sure you have soil right up underneath. Sometimes it's good to kind of pile it up into almost like an upside, like into a volcano shape, then spread your tuber out on top of that. But for the pre-sprouting, we can fit a lot more into a smaller space. I do have videos on just planting them up right like this into pots. And those are still, usually when I'm doing them, I still want them inside, so they're still smaller pots. And then I still pot them up or out into the ground later when the weather is well above freezing outside and I can get them outside. But that just gets them off to a start that way. This way, once they start to shoot, I will have to move them up. But this gives me, you know, a couple of weeks before I have to really get too worried about moving the tubers up in size and having all those pots in here. By then maybe I'll have some of my cool season flowers moved out to the greenhouse. Just have a bit more room in here. So that's one of the advantages to doing this way is just to save on space. And then, like I said, if you're looking to divide them, but you're just not sure about where the growth points are, and you want to make sure you're getting as many as you can out of your divisions, then this is a good way to see that, because once the shoots start, then obviously you know where the growth points are and you can just cut through them that way. And you can just use a large pair of secateurs or a sharp knife and just cut right through. Lots of times you cut right through the old stem and down between each of the tubers, and making sure you have the tuber, the neck, and that growth point on, and that will help you. These couple of tubers here are just kind of a dark color compared to the rest. Just a tiny bit soft, and I'm not sure if they're going bad or not, but I would rather not risk it, so I'm just going to take them off now. This one, the neck really wasn't healthy looking. It was just stringy looking, so probably wasn't any good. So I'm going to stick this guy over here somewhere. There we go. Cover him up. I really thought I was going to do all my dahlias in one of these trays, because I didn't think I had whole clumps in that bag. I should have known by the size of the bag, but so this mix is just soft, but I can't squeeze water. Did I say soft? It's just moist, but I can't squeeze water out of it. Try and spread this big guy out in here. Get some soil in. There. So 7 clumps of dahlia tubers all ready to go. And I'm just going to set these on my shelves under my grow lights. They shouldn't need a humidity dome or a heat mat or anything like that. They're just bringing them into this nice warm space and giving them that moisture should be enough to get them sprouting, and then we can check on them in a few weeks and see what they're doing. Pop them behind me here. And then we're going to do a very similar, pretty much the same thing with the cannas. So these cannas are from my garden that I saved. I just saved a few from last year's selection because there's just so many, and they're all the same variety anyways, which I don't even know the variety name because I lost the tag years ago, but they're a red variety. And again, I think I divided them up a little bit last year when I put them away for storage. Sometimes I don't. So I'll just pull a few out here and then we'll have a look at them. I just store them in vermiculite. I do have videos on how to store both cannas and dahlias. I thought I stored more than 3, but unless I have another bucket of them somewhere that I missed. That's an old dahlia tuber. I reused the vermiculite. Yeah, so it looks like I just saved 3, or else I have another bucket in storage that I forgot about, but that's fine because cannas grow quite large and multiply every year. And what I wanted is, because I had so many, I had like several buckets worth of this variety, And I'd like to buy a few different varieties later on from the garden centers when they're out. But I'm just pulling off some of the old kind of leafy bits here just to try and show you what's underneath. You don't need to do this. It's just like try and give you an idea of what's happening here. So right here is the rhizome. They grow quite large in usually kind of a straight line, but sometimes they'll jut out and have them going off in other directions. And this one has several growing tips. So you can see these points that come up here. That's a growing tip. That's a growing tip. This is an old bit here. Here's a growing tip here that's pointed up. Right here, there's a little point. That'll be a growing tip. Right here will be. So you could divide this. You could come in, cut this off. They usually just pop apart quite easily. And you could have this will grow into a small plant. Where's my... These snips will be big enough. It's kind of just a soft spot under there, but that would be a canna plant right there. I'm gonna cut off the end here. Can you see how really black it is? So it's just not nice. Let's get rid of it. And again, you could take these two and divide them up. You have one and you have two. Right like that. So let's give those a few minutes to heal over from being cut. So same thing, there's a, this is actually kind of a not very nice looking spot on this one. I wonder if they were a little bit too moist when they went, or if they got left out too long and got a little bit frozen maybe, I don't know. Yeah, this one's moldy, it's just quite moist. I don't know if you see the white bits around there, so we don't want that one. And this one I think is actually dried out, which is really odd. Usually cannas store without any effort at all. But, you know, rule of thumb, if you only store a few, you'll lose half of them, right? But that's okay, because like I said, I was planning on buying some more this year anyways. So I'd like to let these heal a little bit. I'll probably leave them for a couple of hours and then come back to them to plant up. But I'll just show you real quick. Won't hurt. So I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did with the dahlias pretty much. So just a little bit of soil, a little more here, a little potting mix in there. And then I'll just be taking the cannas and setting them in. And then I'll just be covering over them with the mix. So they're just barely at the surface. And that's all I'll do with them. So like I said, I want to let these just dry over a little bit before I do that. So I'll set them on here because this cut part will be up. Let the growth points come up. This one, the way it was cut there, like that's already kind of healed. And this one, the cut part is down, so I don't want to put it in yet. But I'll just set it to the side and I can come in, set it in later. I'll set it down so the points are up. Put that little bit of soil around it, and those will be good to go under my lights with the cannas. And that's just how easy it really is. So again, with the cannas, it's very easy to see those growth points, and you just need a big chunk of the tuber and you're good to go. The bigger the chunk, the bigger, the healthier the plant usually is. Like this will probably just grow me a very small plant. It might still flower this year, but I'm not going to count on flowers off of this. But these two should grow and flower for me this year. This one will have several stems because it has several growth points coming out of it. This one just has the one growth point, so it'll probably just have one stem. So that's really easy to divide them. Sometimes you can even just kind of wiggle them and they'll just pop apart. This is just, unfortunately, some not super healthy looking cannas that wound up saved here. So that's fine. I think I dug them up a little bit late, so maybe they just got a little bit too much cold before I put them into storage. I'm not sure. Or maybe they got too warm in storage. You know, you never really know, but cannas usually store pretty easily. I've had these for, I think, 10 years now, so I mean, it's time to get new ones, I'm sure. The dahlias, like I said, once they start to sprout, then it's very easy. If you want to divide them up into more plants, you could do that at that time, but do it as soon as they start to sprout before you get too many roots tangled in there, because you don't want to be breaking off a ton of the roots and losing the roots off of the plants and having them have to put energy into growing those again. But that can be a helpful way to help you to know where to divide them if you want to make lots of plants out of each clump. Otherwise, just take the clump with the shoots on it and put it in the pot or the ground that you're going to grow it in once the weather is warm enough to do so outside, which is definitely above freezing. Even the nighttime temperatures need to be above freezing for Cannas and Dahlias, and you'll have a beautiful show all summer long. So it's usually, I find, about 3 months after you start getting them sprouting that you will see flowers start to form. Some varieties will go a little bit sooner, some will take a little bit longer. So you just have to kind of use that as your guide. And usually just the moist soil is enough to get them sprouting if it's just barely damp like this. If they're not sprouting after about 3 weeks, go in and just give them a little bit more warmth. You don't want to rot the tubers by having them sitting in wet soil, but maybe just give them just a little bit more moisture and a little bit more warmth. Maybe your room just isn't quite warm enough, or some very bright lights. Sometimes that'll stimulate them to grow as well. But usually just bringing them in out of their cold storage, putting them in some moisture and in a warm spot that's bright is enough to get them to start shooting for you. So hopefully you found this helpful. Took some of the mystery out of getting your Cannas and Dahlias started in the spring, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.